We are here for a first webinar by Dr. Anuradha K, MBBS, MD, Mysore Medical College on Can I help in the prevention of antimicrobial resistance? Now, I call upon Meghna to give us a brief introduction on our eminent speaker, Dr. Anuradha K. Over to you, Meghna.
Thank you, Shairi. Good afternoon. I am Meghna of 9th semester, Department of Molecular Biology, and also the Student Secretary of Aspect Club, Yuvrajas College chapter. It gives me immense pleasure to introduce our eminent speaker, Dr. Anuradha K, who is currently a professor and also the head of the Department of Microbiology, Mysore Medical College and Research Institute. She completed her bachelor's degree in medicine in 1985 from Mysore Medical College and Research Institute, and her postgraduate degree in microbiology from Kasturba Medical College, Mangaluru in 1990. Her career in academics started at JSS Medical College, Mysuru in 1991, where she served in the Department of Microbiology in various capacities till August 2007. After which she immediately joined service at the Mysore Medical College Research Institute. As a teaching faculty, she is actively involved in academic activities for the last 30 years and has taken classes for medical, dental, and allied health sciences students. She is actively involved in diagnostic work at MMCRI, HICC, AMSP, NABH, etc. She has guided numerous undergraduate students for ICMR STS projects and many postgraduate dissertations. She is a recognized PhD guide under Rajiv Gandhi University of Health Sciences, Karnataka, and has published more than 30 research papers in peer-reviewed journals. She has delivered guest lectures and also chaired scientific sessions in local CME and various state and national conferences. She is Nodal Officer for the Integrated Disease Surveillance Project, a member of Hospital Infection Control Committee, and also a member of Animal Ethical Committee of MMCRI. Previously, she was a member of the Board of Studies of Vishveshwaraya Technical University, Belgaum for Water and Technology course, and also a member of Board of Studies for undergraduate course of Rajiv Gandhi University of Health Sciences. She is currently the member of Board of Studies of Postgraduate Paraclinical Studies of Rajiv Gandhi University of Health Sciences, member of Doctoral Advisory Committee for PhD Studies at GSS University, editorial member of Rajiv Gandhi University Health Sciences Official Scientific Journal, and associate editor of Journal of Academy of Clinical Microbiologists. She is a life member of IAMM Karnataka chapter. She was a president of the association from the year 2019 to 20, and she has organized state level conference of IAMM Karnataka chapter at MMCRI. She is also a life member of Academy of Clinical Microbiologists and the Society for Indian Human and Animal Mycologists. We look forward to obtaining great perception through your talk. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you very much for your introduction. I think if you change the host to me, I can share the PPT.
Yes, ma'am. You can now share your screen. Ma'am, you can use the present now option there.
I've used it.
So,
1 minute.
yes, ma'am.
That share thing is not coming. Present now is I could open it, but I'm unable to share it.
You can share your entire screen, ma'am, so that you will be able to share your PowerPoint also.
Can you see?
No, ma'am, not it.
Not yet. Now?
No,
Can you
ma'am.
see?
No, ma'am.
No. I put the PPT.
If you can also mail us, ma'am, so that we can share from here if it is.
No, but I cannot control, right?
Yes, ma'am.
That
So
share is not highlighted. Only cancel is highlighted. Let's see.
there is an
Once more,
option
I
that.
will do it. Once more, I will do it.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, now it is. Hopefully, it will come. Yeah, it's come now. I hope you can see.
Yes, ma'am. It's.
Yes, ma'am. We can see it now.
Can you see?
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, at the outset, I wish to thank the Yuvaraja College for choosing me as a speaker. But by hearing the activity and your introduction, I don't know whether I'm talking to your destiny. Anyway, if there is any doubt or any clarification you require, please feel free. Okay, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. So as I've been already introduced by Meghana, I work in Mysore Medical College. I've just put the photo for the people who have not seen the college. Of course, we live in the heart of the city. I think all of us would have seen this college. We are also being donated by Maharaja of Mysore, and we are going to complete our 100 years in 2024. So, as we all know, you gave an introduction saying infectious diseases have been there for centuries, ranked almost equivalent to wars and famines as a major challenge to human progress and survival. They remain among the leading causes of death and disability worldwide. Against a constant background of established infections, epidemics and new and old infectious diseases periodically emerge and greatly magnify the global burden of infection. So one similar situation we are facing today, and for the same reason, we are facing virtually in this webinar. Otherwise, probably, I would have had a chance to come and share the class with you people. So global burden of infectious diseases, you can see it is about 14.9%. And they are the ones which are responsible for death globally. So these infections could be due to bacteria, virus, fungi, or parasites. And of course, each group, we have a different antimicrobial agent to tackle it. So bacteria, we generally use antibiotics. Viruses, we use antiviral agents. Of course, for many years, we did not have a specific antiviral agent except for herpes simplex virus. Now, of course, for every virus, they are trying to have an antiviral agent. As you all know, now even for coronavirus, they have come up with the antiviral agent like Remdesivir. So against fungi also, we have group of antifungal agents which can be used to tackle the fungal infection. And parasites, we have group of antiparasitic agents which can be used to tackle.
Hello, sir.
So hello, if there is any problem, please tell me. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am. You are audible. I think someone has unmuted their mic. You can continue,
Okay,
ma'am.
thank you. So this is just a picture to show that you have a various agents which are generally killed by using the drugs. So they just vanished and we get treated by the infectious diseases. But general rule doesn't always apply. There are some ways, like this slide generally shows how the different antimicrobial agents will act on the bacteria. Because the moment we say about the antimicrobial agents, we always first think of antibiotics. Antibiotic means it is a drug which will act on the bacteria. So we call it as an antibiotic. Now, as you're all aware of the bacterial cell structure, they have a cell wall, cytoplasmic membrane, and they have a ribosome and the free nucleus. So DNA. So you know that the different drugs will act at different level. Those which act on the cell wall, they will inhibit the cell wall synthesis. They can disrupt the cellular membrane and they can inhibit the protein synthesis by binding with the ribosomes, and they can also act as an anti-metabolites, that they will inhibit the synthesis of a para-aminobenzoic acid enzymatic pathway, and also they inhibit the nucleic acid multiplication. So these are the various ways by which they can act. So each group of antibiotic will act on a different level in a bacteria. So what is the role of using these antibiotics? Main aim of using an antibiotic is to kill a pathogen. But they kill the pathogen. At the same time, they can also destroy the normal commensal flora which we have, which are useful to us. But sometimes all the pathogens are not killed, they persist. So those are called as antimicrobial resistant strains. Now the problem of this antimicrobial resistance is they can spread from germ to germ, one organism to another, from one person to another, from animal to man, from the soil to man. So they are easily transferred from different area to a person. So what happens? In that case, in spite of giving the drug, the organisms do not get eliminated, they remain. So right in the introduction, Siddharth told that the malarial parasite, now they are also acquiring resistance. Candida, as you all know, Candida auris is the multi-drug resistant Candida species that is seen now globally, which is creating a lot of problem. So virus, antiviral agent, he told HIV is acquiring resistance. So HIV also you're seeing resistance, and influenza resistance is known. So that is how, now to define what you mean by an antimicrobial resistance, it is the ability of the microorganism to survive or multiply. Means not just multiply, they just can survive or multiply in spite of using the drugs in a correct dose. And even if you increase the dose within the limits of the tolerance of a host, in spite of that, the organism persists in the body. Then you call it as a antimicrobial resistant strain. Suppose if you do not take a proper dose of the drug, and if it is not absorbed properly in the body due to various other reasons, then you cannot call it as a microbial resistance. It should be given in a correct dosage. It should have been absorbed properly. We should have acted on the organism, but organism should have resisted the action. Then only you call it as a antimicrobial resistance. That means the organism have got the ability to counteract the action of antibiotics. So this resistance, how do they acquire? Some organisms naturally have got a resistance to certain antibiotics. For example, in case of gram-positive organisms, if you use colistin, they will not be effective. In case of gram-negative organism, if you use vancomycin, it will not be effective. And apart from that, there are certain organisms. Now, Klebsiella is intrinsically resistant to ampicillin. Intrinsically means you cannot use that drug at all if it is Klebsiella, because they will not act on it. So that is what it means by natural. Naturally, they are resistant to certain group of drugs. Now, acquired. As you know, acquired means it will be during their time, at the time of infection. It could be due to genetic factors or it could be due to biochemical methods. Now, genetic factors means, as you all know, it could be chromosomal or extra-chromosomal. If it is chromosomal, generally it is by mutation. So single step mutation will be mainly responsible for antimicrobial resistance. Extra-chromosomal, plasmid and transposons, they mainly play a role in the transfer of drug resistance from one organism to another. It could be from pathogen to pathogen, or it could be from commensal to pathogen, pathogen to commensal, like that. So biochemical methods means organism will produce certain enzymes. They will prevent the drug accumulation within the cell, and they modify the target cell So thereby they will use an alternate pathway for survival. So with this mechanism, they acquire the drug resistance. Now, transfer of drug resistance from one organism to another, they mainly occur through three main genetic transfer methods, that is transformation, transduction, and conjugation. So transformation, free DNA is transferred, conjugation is through plasmids, transduction is through bacteriophage. So what exactly they do? They either alter the porin or they change the receptor, porin receptor, where the antibiotic is supposed to go and get attached, or the antibiotic gets inactivated and enzymes, they bind to the antibiotic molecule and thereby they inactivate it and they will not allow the antibiotic to act on the bacteria. And so in some organisms, actually, antibiotics should go and enter the cell and they should get concentrated within the cell to destroy the organism. But what happens here is some organisms will push the antibiotic as soon as it enters the cell outside. This is called as efflux mechanism. So there will be increased efflux mechanism which will push it outside, thereby it helps the organism to survive. So these are the basic mechanism by which the organism will modify itself to survive in the presence of antibiotic. So this is the timeline of antibiotic discovery and resistance. So you can see here from 1930, you have a lot of antibiotics which came to the market. But after 2005, we don't have any antibiotic coming to the market. So that is why everybody is worried there is no antibiotic in the pipeline in future to treat the patients who get infected with drug-resistant strains. So that is a worry we have globally also. So that is why there are so many changes that they have done. Now, as we can see, globally, we have the emerging and re-emerging infectious diseases, out of which they've also mentioned multi-drug-resistant tuberculosis, drug-resistant malaria, vancomycin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus, vancomycin-resistant Staph aureus, enterococci, etc. So, drug-resistant strains also have come to the global level of emerging bacterial infections. So, antiviral resistance, I'm not going to tell you in detail, but you have the different steps of replication of the virus. So, in these steps, each viral agent, antiviral agent will act at different levels in different organisms, different viruses. But when that particular area is affected, you will get the resistant to antiviral agents. So antifungal resistance. So antifungal resistance, you see earlier, we never used to do antifungal susceptibility testing, thinking that any fungal infection, you start with azole, patients will respond. But now that there is increase in the azole resistance, you have problem of drug resistance there also. Now you can see in this picture, darkly stained area is resistance and light round area, you have a partial resistance that is depicted in this picture. So you can see azoles, pyrimidine analog, echinocandine, paulins, these are the drug group which we have, and they have started acquiring resistance to it. So antifungal resistance also is coming into picture. Now, when we get an antifungal resistance, it is difficult because people who get these fungal infections are usually immunocompromised individuals. On one hand, you have an immunocompromised state. Other hand, you have a fungal infection which is not responding to the treatment. So ultimately, the fungus will determine the mortality and morbidity of the individual who has been infected by it. So that is also a very great concern now. Now, to briefly tell about the drug-resistant microbes. Now, these microbes, they are usually called as escape pathogens. So they stand for E. coli, So Staphylococcus aureus, initially they thought they developed resistant to sulfa, then to penicillin, then to methicillin, now slowly to vancomycin. But when the organism developed resistance to vancomycin, they are called as alert strains. So these alert strains has to be shared. So then coming to very briefly about Enterococcus faecalis. Now the main resistance what you see is for the vancomycin. So vancomycin resistance Enterococcus, VRE, it is called as. Now that is also a global concern. So Neisseria gonorrhoeae, which is known to cause a sexually transmitted disease, and they also are requiring resistance to the routine drugs that are used. So in gram-negative bacilli, you have Klebsiella, E. coli, Pseudomonas, Acinetobacter, etc. So this is how the gram-positive cell wall will acquire the resistance. So the main drug resistance you have is methicillin, penicillin, and vancomycin. In case of gram-negative, you have various mechanisms of acquiring the resistance. So you have beta-lactamase, AMP-C, extended beta-lactamase production, carbopinamase, pan-drug resistance, etc. So due to antimicrobial resistance, we have something called as superbugs that are arising. So we told in the introduction that superbugs, they give rise to treatment failure. So difficult to treat the infectious disease, and post-surgery, it is difficult to manage because of the complications. So surgery becomes very risky. Now these superbugs continuously present in the surrounding, and they get amplified and spread by the human behavior. Now what we need to consider is we should bring about change in the human behavior, which can in turn bring a change in the antimicrobial resistance pattern. So we should aim at human behavior. That is what I thought I will highlight today. Now man becomes the center part here, and we can acquire the resistance from plant pathogen, animal pathogen, and also from the environment. So this is through the food chain. It can affect people, or through direct or indirect contact with the livestock industry or animal health workers, we can get infected, and through environment, which are contaminated with the manure in agriculture, we can acquire resistance. So environment, it acts as a main reservoir of antimicrobial resistant strains, which are called as resistomes. So these exist in the organisms that are present in the soil. And also the antimicrobial agents will reach the environment from the human and the animal therapeutics through manure, sewage, and the agriculture work. All these things will contaminate the resistant strains in the soil. So either per se, bacteria themselves which are producing the antibiotic may have a resistant gene, or they may acquire it through the human and the animal therapeutics. So research data shows that diverse soils from various regions of the world, they show the emergence and selection of AMR in the environmental bacteria. And there is a wide spread of antimicrobial resistance. So the environment, now if it is present in the environment, why we should bother? We should bother because man can get infected with the opportunistic pathogens which are present in the soil. Opportunistic pathogens means they generally do not cause infection, but when the host system becomes conducive for them to cause infection, they will cause infection in us. So they take advantage of the opportunity provided by human beings. So the main various organisms are, it could be Pseudomonas, Acinetobacter, Burkholderia, Ctenotrophomonas, etc. They will acquire these resistant genes from the soil. So when they cause infection in us, they fail to get treated and they become responsible for mortality and morbidity. And these pathogenic organisms carrying plasmid resistant genes can transfer the genes to the other pathogens like E. coli, Salmonella, Shigella, Klebsiella, etc. So And you also have a bacteria resistant to macrolides, which are including the new drug that is telithromycin has been reported from the soil. So before, the telithromycin is not routinely used. So it is yet to, we are going to put into routine clinical practice. See, before putting into routine clinical practice itself, they have found that they can acquire resistance from the soil. So that is a problem we have in the environment. Now coming to the next important chunk, what is present around us is the animals. Now, how does these animals play a role in transfer of drug resistance to us? So most of the animals are given growth promoting antibiotic. So that was called as avoparcin. Now this avoparcin, when it was used, this is a European study that they have done. They found that this usage of this has led to vancomycin resistant enterococcal infection. And these animals are also responsible for transmission of ESBL, carbapenemase producing Enterobacteriaceae members, and also MRSA. So animals also play a very, very vital role. So how do the animals play a role? Now, all of us know that nowadays we do have pets. Now, when the pets suffer from infection, we take them to a veterinary clinic where they are treated with for that particular infection. So when they are treated for a particular infection, they may just affect the animal health issue. But sometimes these animals can also cause infection in man, which is called as a zoonotic infection. So when they cause infection in man, this person who is got infected with the animal pathogen may get affected with the individual health issue because of the antimicrobial resistance. In other words, on the other hand, when you treat these animals with an antibiotic agent, I told you right in the beginning, antibiotics will act not only on the pathogen, they can also act on the commensal flora. So when they act on the commensal flora, they change the global ecological problem in the environment and give rise to a public health issue. So treatment of the animal can be only the animal health issue or an individual man issue, or it could be a public health issue. So that is how. Now, veterinary targeted pathogen, only animal health issue. Zoonotic disease or the foodborne pathogen, it becomes a public health issue. So when the commensals are affected, even the community becomes affected. So this is how from the colonization, they pass in the feces or the intestinal flora or in the meat. And they get colonized in an infected individual. He gets admitted in the hospital. From the hospital, he can transfer to other patients or he can transmit to the community members. That is how they spread in the community. So our gene, that is the resistant gene transmission from animal, there is an increased frequency of treatment failure and there is a severe infection. So these are the few examples which can be quoted, that is enterofloxacin, which is used for food production. They can give rise to resistance for ciprofloxacillin, which is the common drug that is used to treat enteric fever caused by salmonella. And in abroad, you have something called as antibiotic-associated diarrhea, diarrheal disease caused by the Campylobacter species. There also they use this. So salmonella and Campylobacter can acquire resistance to ciprofloxacillin because of the usage of this antibiotic in the animal. Now, animal feed supplement may have a tylosin, which induces or transfers our gene for erythromycin. So any skin infection that is caused due to staphylococci or streptococci in animals and in the animal handlers can give rise to resistance to erythromycin. So that is how the animal resistance can get reflected in human being. So this is how it affects, which I have already discussed in the earlier slide. So for the animal commensal microbiota, the concern is ecological, collective, and worldwide. So that is why now they are thinking, whether to go for green antimicrobial agents to treat the veterinary medicine. Antimicrobial drugs, green antimicrobial drugs that can be used to treat the animals. So how do you protect yourself? So how can I prevent? Now you must be thinking why I was telling you all these things. The reason is we should first know how do we get infected. Then we can think about how do I contribute for the prevention of antimicrobial resistance. First and the foremost is cleanliness. That is, wash your hands. Now this is the slogan that is told even now in the situation of pandemic, that is cleaning hands. It sounds very simple, but definitely it has a lot of contribution towards the control of infectious diseases, either in the community or in the hospital atmosphere. That is why hand hygiene has been taken as a very important methodology to prevent infection. See, prevention of infection is one step towards the prevention of antimicrobial resistance, because once you prevent infection, usage of antimicrobial drugs will come down. Once the usage of microbial drugs comes down, automatically resistant transfer of resistance also will come down. So that is the reason the first and the foremost step is cleanliness. That is why World Health Organization has put forward a lot of material how to take care of your hands. That is to protect yourself plus to protect others. Next thing is, when the infection occurs, you should know what could be the symptoms of infectious disease. I have not quoted all the infectious diseases because it is out of purview of this today's program. So to mention a few common things what we generally get and what is visible. First and the foremost is the respiratory tract infection. So all of us are very well aware because the symptoms are told everywhere, including in your ringtone also it is mentioned. Whether if you have fever, cough and breathlessness, you go and see the doctor. So that is a common clinical manifestation due to respiratory tract infection. So gastrointestinal, I am sure all of you I would have experienced. If you eat outside, if you cannot tolerate that food, automatically you develop pain abdomen, you develop nausea, you develop vomiting. And other symptoms generally will be there, but these are the main symptoms which generally indicates that you have a gastrointestinal infection. Next is the skin and soft tissue, what you see outside. So usually when there is a wound, there will be pain, there will be oozing. So whenever there is oozing, and if the oozing is yellowish in color, usually you call it as pus, and that indicates that there is infection. Otherwise, there is no need of taking any antibiotics. So this is to mention few symptoms wherein you can think that there is an infection. Now, what are the steps you are supposed to follow when we have a suspected infection? Now, first and the foremost, you say no to the over-the-counter tablets. You should never go and ask the chemist, because I have seen several chemist shops wherein people will come and say, I have fever, I have headache, I have running nose, please give me tablets. So I have seen people giving 2 tablets of ciprofloxacin, 1 tablet of paracetamol, and they just walk out from the counter and they will go and take it. But after 2 tablets of ciprofloxacin, they will not take anything else. One day the fever will come down, next day they will relax. But the problem is the organism is not totally eliminated, or there is a misuse or an abuse of an antibiotic there. Either the patient do not require at all, because it could be just a viral infection which do not require any antibiotics. That is why unless you have an infection of the lower respiratory tract, you're not supposed to take any antibiotics. Upper respiratory, usually they recover on their own. So first and the foremost, never take drugs over the counter, especially antibiotics. So in developed country, antibiotic will never be dispensed over the counter. They should have a doctor's prescription. So you need to consult doctor So once you consult the doctor, they will give you the prescription. So the tablet has to be taken as per the prescription. And please discard the remaining antibiotics, or please do not consume the antibiotics which are remaining, what was left behind from other family members, because there you will not get the full course of drug. One. Second, we do not know for what they have been given that antibiotic earlier. So taking those things into consideration, generally better to consult the doctor, take a prescription, follow the prescription, and discard the remaining antibiotics. Generally, the dosage will be written as per the requirement. If it is remaining, that means the person has not taken the drug as per the directions. So what has happened? The required dose has not been taken. So automatically the pathogens will not be killed. So they will persist. When they persist, there is chance of getting the infection again, which we call it as a relapse. So that can occur. So usually the drugs should not remain, provided they have followed the directions properly. Now, this is coming to the simple infection, what we acquire, what we are supposed to do. Second step is food, what we come across. Now, how do we take or prepare the food safety? Because food is also responsible for many infections. Food poisoning do occur very often when people go to hotels, or when the people eat in the periphery outside, or when they go for big functions, they usually suffer from food poisoning. And so generally for food safety at home, the WHO says first and foremost you clean, then you separate it, then you cook, and then you keep it in a proper storage. Next thing is you should prevent yourself from infections. So if you want to prevent yourself from infections, what you need to do? There are certain vaccines given for infectious diseases. Now, what is the purpose of giving a vaccine? So this is a fellow who has been infected. So you have 1 or 2, 3 people who have been vaccinated. So those 3 are protected, whereas the rest of them are infected. So all these blue people who are not vaccinated got the infection. Now, if you vaccinate the majority of the people, the infection will remain only in the person who has been infected, and those who are vaccinated are safer. So that is the purpose of vaccination. So as far as the vaccination is concerned, I'll show you the next slide. But remember, you should do pet vaccination also. If you have pet at home, as I already told you, animals are also equally susceptible for infections. So they can develop infection. So that can be transmitted to us. And we can develop resistance and suffer more. That is why pet also needs to be vaccinated. So vaccination of people and vaccination of the pet. Now we have a schedule for adult vaccination. So starting from the age of 19 years, because up to 18 years, people are considered as pediatric age group. So from 19, it is considered as adult age group. So up to above 65 years, you have the different vaccines told by the CDC, which can be given for people depending on the situation. So all of you, most of you, I have heard that you introduced yourself as a student in the integrated molecular biology in Yuvaraja's College. Very nice, because you people are the next gen researchers whom we are going to get and who can contribute a lot to this particular field. So what you need to do is, as a next gen researchers, you should use an innovative methods and the new technologies to find the whole genome sequencing, metagenomics, and bioinformatic approaches to develop next generation tools to strengthen the human and the animal health. So by doing this, you can develop a diagnostic methods which can be used as a point of care test. Now, what do you mean by point of care test is when the patient comes to the hospital or a clinic, they should be able to do the test over the counter and tell them what kind of infection they have, whether it is bacterial or viral. And also to some extent, if it can detect the drug susceptibility, it becomes all the more easier. Now to classify into bacterial or viral, because many of the viral infection, it is not going to be treated by using antibiotics. You should not use antibiotic in viral infections. So if you are using an antibiotic in a viral infection, it becomes a misuse or an abuse of usage of antibiotic, which can lead to drug resistance. So the importance of developing a point of care test is, by doing that, you are going to direct for the correct usage of antibiotic, which can prevent the antimicrobial resistance. So there, your role is very, very important. And through this, definitely you can contribute more in the production of new antibiotics. Of course, the production or introduction of new antibiotics to the market, it takes many years because it has to pass through many phases of trial. First, you have to identify the molecule which can act on a particular bacteria. Then the molecule has to be characterized, it should be synthesized, it should be trialed, and then it should be put into market so that it do not have any side effects. Because the aim of the antibiotic may be to kill the organism, but it should be directed to kill only the organism. It should not be toxic to the person who is using. Because we have number of cells and number of tissues in the body, these drugs should not act on the tissues. It should protect the host, kill only the pathogen. So that is what is required. So to study the effect of all these things requires a lot of time. So it is not easy to bring an antibiotic to the field on a rapid basis. So your contribution in these two fields will definitely change the antimicrobial resistance scenario globally. So antibiotic resistance is a global health problem. So it requires international attention and collaboration between the different countries across the border. So bioinformatics also plays a very important role. They determine the protein structure, gene structure, sequence, molecular markers, and they also provide a modeling system, modeling a biological living cell and docking proteins that will enable to diversify the problems of antibiotic resistance, so which is going to be a major public health challenge. So bioinformatics also plays a very, very vital role. Next, what else you can do? You can create an awareness. So right in the beginning, when she did give an introduction about your club, you said you are going to create an awareness. It is very nice to know that even though you people do not use antibiotics, you have created a club which is going to create an awareness. Now, what is the awareness you're going to create? You are going to create an awareness about the antimicrobial resistance, which can bring about the behavioral change in the people, which in turn can prevent the rapid evolution and spread of antimicrobial strains. So what you can do? You can create a public communication. So target different audiences in human health, animal health, agriculture practice, and also consumers. So if you target different audience, based on the audience, you can give what you have to tell them to protect the emergence of antimicrobial resistant strains. Next, it can be introduced in the school curriculum. And you can tell them what is an antimicrobial agent, what is a resistance, how it has to be used. Now I have seen the curricula of hand hygiene has been introduced at the school level, and each and every child knows how to wash their hands, what are the steps of hand washing. So that is the ideal age and the forum to create awareness whenever we have a global problem in a very small way. They can also contribute. And small contributions from each individual can bring about a major change. So in the school curricula also it can be introduced, and at a professional course. So professional course, you belong to this group now. So you need to have a professional education, training. You can have a certification course. You can have a continuing education and development in the health and veterinary sectors and agriculture sector, so that you have a proper understanding and awareness among the professionals. Now, this is one such program which you have arranged to create a small way to create a awareness. Awareness you knew, but it is a kind of continuing education. So I congratulate you for this. Next, you have to have a communication, education, and training. Now, why this is required? This is to strengthen the knowledge. People know about it. You talk about more about it. A thing which they do not know, they will learn. That is strengthening the knowledge by evidence-based through surveillance and research. You just can't talk about things without knowing the facts. So how do you get to know the fact? Is by surveillance or research. So that is why more and more research in AMR is invited. That is the reason they did the poster competition also, in which you also participated. For that also, I congratulate you for taking a step towards prevention of antimicrobial resistance and to reduce the incidence of infection. So how you can do it? You can advise them about the effective sanitation, hygiene measures, and what are the infection prevention measures that can be taken. Now, this is what they are doing to prevent the spread of coronavirus now. They are giving, they are increasing the awareness and education regarding the effective sanitation, hygiene, and what are the preventive measures you can take. And you should optimize the use of antimicrobial medicines. So I told you, your inadvertent use of antimicrobial agents should be discouraged. There is no need to take antibiotic when you have a just a running nose and a mild fever or a body ache. That will heal on its own, because it could be just a mild viral infection. If there is just an abdominal pain, vomiting and diarrhea, there is no need to take an antibiotic. It could be just a mild food poisoning, which will settle on its own in 24 to 48 hours. So you can wait. So there are situations like that wherein you need not take these drugs. And you can develop an economic case for sustainable investments in new medicine, diagnostic tools, vaccines, and other interventions. Of course, this we cannot do, but we can always appraise and create an awareness. This is the need we have at the higher level, so that it will go to the government level or the policy makers who will support us in our try to prevention of antimicrobial resistance. Another thing is quorum sensing. So quorum sensing, I'm very sure many of you are doing it, because I've seen many people in Mysore University doing a study on quorum sensing, especially in Pseudomonas and Acinetobacter and all those things they have done. Now they are finding out a quorum sensing inhibition, which can prevent the pathogenic effect of multi-drug resistance in case of Staphylococcus, Pseudomonas, etc. So in-depth study about quorum sensing to prevent antimicrobial resistance, you can think of doing it. So what is the global impact of this antimicrobial resistance on human health? So look at this statistics. About 7 lakh of AMR related deaths per year occur globally. So 30% have of developing countries to have a national action plan on AMR. So many newborn children die, 58,000. So TB, as they told right in the beginning, that is the multi-drug resistant TB, 4,90,000 die. So like that, we have a statistics to say that antimicrobial resistance takes away the life of people, and it is a burning global problem. So what could be the reason for antimicrobial resistance? So it is generally a suboptimal education and training. So in the hospital, in the community, and non-human use of antibiotics, that is in the plant crops, in the animals, in the fertilizers, etc., and also in the environment. All these things lead to antimicrobial resistance. So how can we prevent? You have to prevent at the patient level. So this is what I think Dr. Sumana has spoken to you in the last opening oration, that is antimicrobial stewardship program, that is generally done in the hospitals, but now they encourage to do this AMSP program even in veterinary health, because in veterinary practice they use a lot of antibiotics compared to human infection, because the dosage what they give is much higher than what we use in case of human infection. That is why they say you have to have an antimicrobial stewardship program even in veterinary hospitals. And at the community level, you can do sanitization, hygiene practices, awareness creation, vaccination, etc. National and international level. Now, international level, you have something called as GLASS, that is Global Antimicrobial Resistance Use Surveillance System. So this is formed in 2008, and in 2020 also they come up with a new manual. So globally, what do? They look at the antimicrobial resistance, antimicrobial consumption, and HIV drug resistance in tuberculosis, malaria, and also in gonococci. So these are the few things in which they concentrate. They have included more than 96 countries under this program. And at the national level, we have a national center which needs to implement it. So what they do, they take 8 antibiotic profile or antimicrobial profile of 8 pathogens, that is Escherichia coli, Klebsiella, Acinetobacter, Staphylococcus, Streptococcus, Salmonella, Shigella, and Neisseria, from 4 different samples of human pathogens, that is blood, urine, stool, and genital swabs. Genital swabs mainly for Neisseria, so stool mainly for Salmonella, Shigella, urine for other organisms, blood for mainly again Salmonella, and the rest. So 8 pathogens are included under GLASS isolated from 4 samples. Now they have not included sputum, they have not included pus. The reason is sputum may have a commensal flora which will reflect wrongly about the resistance. So pus can also, it is an open wound. So the open wound, if you collect the pus, it may not be a pathogen at all. It may be just a commensal flora. Now at the national level, what do we have? Now in India, at the national level, we have National Communicable Disease Center. So they will collect all the data from the surveillance units. Means they have recognized many medical colleges for this survey. And quarterly they collect the report and it goes to the National Communicable Disease Center. They compile it and they send it to the World Health Organization. This is how they will get the antibiotic profile from the 8 pathogens isolated from 4 different specimens, and WHO will compile it and put it in its website. So resistance anywhere is resistance everywhere. That means either the resistance is in the environment or in the man or in animal or in food. They can interchange with each other and they can spread between each other. So that is why it is said resistance anywhere is resistance everywhere. So if you just control human antimicrobial resistance is not enough. You need to control in all the places. So that is why they said antimicrobial resistance is an ecological problem. And it is highly multifaceted topic at the interface of human, animal, and plant health, food hygiene, and environmental science. So by taking this into consideration, they have a tripartite work plan on antimicrobial resistance, including human, animal, and the crops. So they collect the official data of about antimicrobial usage and antimicrobial resistance from human, animal, food, plants, and environment on regional and global basis, which is provided to the Food Agricultural Organization. So food and agriculture people will provide to FAO. Animal husbandry or veterinary, they will provide to Organization of Animal Health, and human health we provide to World Health Organization. So all three organizations will collect the antimicrobial usage and antimicrobial resistance data, and they integrate with each other and they get validated. So also you can use some to strengthen the immune system. We can use certain vaccines or probiotics, prebiotics, etc. So to conclude, so I have told you how we get antimicrobial resistance, how it spreads. It spreads from, it can be from animal to man, or from man to other man, from the man to animal. So it is a cycle which goes from all living beings. We share and we spread antimicrobial resistance from one living animal to the other, keeping the environment as the base. So soil, even though it is inanimate, it can spread the resistance. So WHO said, World Health Organization, so you have the great chance of acquiring the infection through the food chain. So how to avoid? Take antibiotic as prescribed, complete the entire course, even if you feel better. That's what I told there. If it is remaining, it means you have not taken. That's what it implies, because usually prescription is given only for the required period, required number. Do not save antibiotic for future use. You should discard it. Do not use someone else's antibiotics. And do not take antibiotics for a viral infection. Viral infections are not going to be treated by taking an antibiotic. So that is what we need to do. So antibiotics taken by animals can spread, taken by man can also spread. So protect yourself and your family. So simple measures: clean your hand, get vaccinated, create awareness about your changes in your health. Be aware of changes in your health. Means if you're not feeling well, please consult the doctor, take appropriate treatment. So use antibiotics appropriately. Talk with your healthcare provider or a veterinarian. When your pet is not well, talk to the vet. And treatment, take treatment when you, your family or your animal is sick. So, and antibiotics save lives, but anytime they're used, they can have side effects, can also lead to antibiotic resistance. So practice healthy habits around animals. Always clean your hands after touching, feeding, caring of the animal, and keep your animals healthy. And another important is prepare food safely. So with this, so by 2050, one person could die every 3 seconds. So AMR is not tackled now. So globally, they say there will be 10 million deaths by 2050, costing about 66 trillion. So as a team, we and you, like a One Health approach with the human health, animal health, and environmental health, we can bring down the antimicrobial resistance, or we can prevent the antimicrobial resistance. I hope you have understood what you can do to prevent the antimicrobial resistance. Thank you for your patience hearing.
Thank you, ma'am, for this amazing session. We couldn't really have asked for a better speaker. Now we'll move on to
Thank you so much. If you have any doubt, please feel free. Because I didn't want to tell more about the medical aspects of antimicrobial resistance. I thought of covering it as a general one. I hope I have met with your demand or whatever you say.
Yes, ma'am. So, note to the participants, please feel free to drop your questions in the chat box. You can also unmute yourself and clear your doubts. For those who are watching the webinar on YouTube Live, please drop your questions in the comment box. Thank you. The topic is now open for discussion.
Can I answer the chat questions first?
Yes, ma'am. I'll read out the questions for you.
No, I can see here. So
Okay,
somebody has asked what is the average time that the bacteria could take to acquire resistance to a certain antibiotic. Could there be a timeline or it is completely random and spontaneous? No, there is no timeline as such. We cannot determine. Sometimes they develop late, sometimes they develop early. It depends on whether they have acquired the resistant strain itself or they have acquired the sensitive one and they have acquired the resistance. It depends on so many factors, so it cannot be determined very easily. Is there any reports about the existence of cross-resistance in bacteria? If not, how we can? Well, I did not. Cross-resistance means you mean to say to the multiple drugs or multiple mechanisms? Madam?
Yes, excuse me, I am
Yes, sir.
one of the teachers for
Yes, sir.
students. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
The cross resistance, I meant one.
Sir, I cannot hear you. I'm sorry. I think it's become mute.
Okay.
Yeah. Please.
Can you hear me, ma'am?
Yeah. Now I can hear.
Okay. Cross resistance, I meant that once the bacterium has become resistant against a particular drug, whether it will be resistant against other drugs also, even if it is not exposed to.
Yes, it can.
Yeah, it
because
can.
I'll just give you an example. Now we say that it is a methicillin resistant Staphylococcus aureus.
Yeah.
Now when we report that, we say that do not use cephalosporins and other beta-lactam drugs. It will be invariably resistant.
Okay.
It can.
So,
it is.
Yes. That must be the reason why there will be resistant variety even before the release of a particular drug.
Yes, sir. That is possible. If they share the common mechanism, there can be a resistance. Now, why we say that is they all of them will act on the cell wall. So if there is a variation in the cell wall receptor, the other antibiotics also will not be effective.
Yeah, correct. And they have got these detoxifying enzymes. Usually, multiple enzymes are there to detoxify these antibiotics. So that would act most probably on a broad spectrum of antibiotics. Yeah. And one more doubt I have written there is in the absence of any new antibiotic in the pipeline, ma'am, especially against the multi-drug resistant TB bacilli, what is the solution left other than combination drugs?
So that is very difficult to answer actually, because tuberculosis, the problem we have is they are very slowly multiplying organisms, number one. They don't multiply as easily as our routine pathogens. So the antibiotic level should be maintained such that they can act on the organism at an active multiplication phase. So we don't have any new drug that is seen actually. Now what they are telling is avoid using ciprofloxacillin, that is quinolones, for the other infections, so that we can retain it for tuberculosis treatment. Because so that comes under second line of drugs. So now they are telling avoid using fluoroquinolones for the other infections, so that we can retain it. Now we don't have any antibiotics in the pipeline, neither for tubercle bacilli nor for other organisms. Sir. That is a problem we have.
Thank you very much, ma'am. It was a very nice presentation.
Any other questions?
Yes, ma'am. There is a question from Anjali Akash. Do probiotics have a role in resisting infections?
Actually, to be frank, there's not much of research that are done in the medical field. But commercially, they do say that probiotics helps. But according to us, probiotic will help to increase the commensal flora. Thereby, it prevents the pathogen establishing the infections, damage more. So probiotics, basically, they are used only in gastrointestinal infections, so that you have more of flora in the intestine. For example, Sporolac we give. Sporolac contains lactobacilli or Saccharomyces yeast. So it will increase the intestinal flora, but not exactly it has a role on pathogens actually. So I don't call it as it will help to prevent the resistance. Maybe if it improves the commensal flora, the disease can controlled with the probiotics itself. You need not use antibiotic. Thereby, you may prevent the resistance by preventing the use of antibiotic.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Next question is by Amartya. Is allergy to a particular antibiotic any way related to the resistance developed by the microbes for that antibiotic?
No. Allergy is purely a host response towards the chemical that is present in the drug. It is no way related with the microorganism.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
Next question is by Inchara. Can natural antibiotics also cause antimicrobial resistance? As in, can even Ayurvedic antibiotics lead to AMR?
Possible, because we do not know about the constituents of the Ayurvedic, antibiotic, what they have. So there may be a possibility. I really do not know to contribute much in this field, because we have not compared and we have not studied about it actually.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. Next question is by Mridula. There seems to be development of universal vaccine for influenza. How do these work? Are they effective for a long time?
Influenza virus is one thing. It keeps changing its antigens. They are known for antigenic shift and drift, because influenza virus present in all the species, animals, birds, and human being. And there will be crossing of these strains between the different living beings. So what happens is there is a gene mixture. When the gene mixture occurs, their new strain arises. Similarly, what happened in 2008 swine flu influenza virus. So it was a combination of 2 swine and 1 avian influenza and 1 human influenza. So 8 segments were 2 each. They were different. That is why manifestation is totally different. Not only that, and a single strain also keeps on changing due to the mutation within. So you have a different H1 presented on the surface, papillomas. So we cannot say that it will definitely protect. To some extent, they can provide a cross protection. So it may not be 100% protective. To some extent, they will protect.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Next question is by Subhash Chaitanya. Does AMR have a huge impact in increasing secondary infections in COVID-affected people during this pandemic?
No, COVID-19 is a viral infection. So their AMR is not that, they do not develop resistance as such now. And resistance to antiviral agent, it is too short to tell, because there is no study that has been done to know the effect of remdesivir on the virus. So AMR does not impact the COVID-19.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Next question is by Prajwal Kaushik. Do antibiotic-resistant pathogenic bacteria have any effect on the local microbiome in our body? Following, is there a possibility of transfer of drug-resistant genes from the resistant strain into a commensal microbiome?
Definitely, that is there. It is there. That is why in a hospitalized patient, there are a lot of studies which they have found that they acquire resistance, that fecal E. coli, they can acquire resistance to carbapenems, etc. It is there. So from the pathogen, it can be transferred to the commensal flora. And this commensal flora can transfer to others.
Thank you, ma'am. Next question. Is it possible that due to the indiscriminate use of antimicrobials like sanitizers, that the viruses or bacteria could sometimes in future acquire some form of resistance to these?
See, the sanitizers are just superficial what we are using. Okay, so resistance is mainly when we take like when there is a oral consumption or an intraparental consumption within the system. For topical application on the surface, generally it is not going to affect much.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Next question. Can indiscriminate use of antimicrobials like triclosans, hydrogen peroxide, and other chemicals present in the household products also contribute to the burden of antimicrobial resistance?
No, no, it doesn't. Because you are not consuming it, no? Hydrogen peroxide or the chemicals are not called as antibiotics. Okay, see, these chemical disinfectants are totally different from antimicrobial agents. What we call antimicrobial agents are those which we take to treat any infections, or when we take it orally or in the injection form. That what we use for washing and all those things, we don't consider it as the antimicrobial agent. It is just a chemical disinfectant. It will just kill the organisms that are present on the surface. It does not penetrate, go inside. Its action is only superficial.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Thank you.
hope I made it clear.
Yes, ma'am. Next question. Are there any natural antimicrobials that can be substituted instead of synthetic antibiotics, and how effective are they?
See, most of the antibiotics are derived from the plants or from the fungus. Most of them are natural only initially, then they are synthesized actually. Penicillin came from penicillin, isn't it? So sulfur drugs came from actinomycetes. Like that, they all originated from organisms or from the fungi. So they are usually, actually most of them are natural. Then they make it, they study their chemical pattern and they are synthesized. So of course, they say even neem has got an antibacterial activity, but we don't consume neem as such. They say turmeric has an antibacterial activity. So there are so many things which are put forward. Of course, there are many studies also, but we don't go into depth, and because we do not use it on a therapeutic process here.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Next question is by Professor Shankar Abhat. How is AMR diagnosed by doctors?
We do culture and sensitivity, basically, and based on that report, we report to the clinician. Sometimes when the patient do not respond to treatment by giving the drug for a desired duration, then they will think that probably he is not responding to the particular antibiotic, then they will change it if they do not do the culture and sensitivity.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Next question is by Darini. How effective are the use of antibiotics in treating COVID-19 so far?
See, COVID-19, actually, it is a viral infection. Antibiotics are generally given to prevent secondary bacterial infection, because whenever the virus affects the respiratory tract, the respiratory epithelial cells gets damaged and makes way for the bacteria to enter inside and cause infection. So that is what you need to prevent, because viruses generally give rise to secondary bacterial infection.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Next question is by Inchara Gowda. Is COVID-19 accelerating the threat of antimicrobial resistance?
No. No.
I think that's those are all the questions for now, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for this informative session. Now I call upon Sachin G. Swami, the president of Aspic Club YCM chapter, to make a few announcements on the future activities of the club. Over to you, Sachin.
Thank you, Shaili. First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Anuradha ma'am for giving us a new perspective towards our new venture. And I would like to give some concluding remarks. So I would like to add a note on the present and the upcoming activities of the club. So we have plans of conducting offline activities, engaging common people and school children. But this pandemic has stopped us from doing that so far. So to be active, we thought of conducting some online events to make sure that everyone understands the need for action to be taken right now against AMR. And recently, we had a series called Sundays with Superbugs on the social media platforms, where we posted some facts on the Superbug each Sunday. And still, there are plans for some to post some of the facts and information and to make it to reach people. And we are also planning to extend our posts in Kannada to hold and reach local people. As offline activities, we have plans to concentrate on healthcare workers and also rural people in our awareness campaigns. I hope we remain active and work in line with Aspect Club's network through its continuous support and also with the encouragement and involvement of Department of Molecular Biology, Ivrajas College. So now I call upon Shreyas to make few announcements regarding our future activities. Over to you, Shreyas. Excuse me, ma'am. Can you please stop the sharing of the slides? We were not able to share. Yes. Thank you, ma'am.
Fine. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Sachin. The future influences the present just as much as the past. This time, Aspect Ivrajas College has come up with some new announcements. The Aspect Club network, along with React Asia Pacific, is organizing a photography contest to celebrate the World Antibiotic Awareness Week 2020. So we welcome all the interested candidates to just look into their websites for the details and sign up for this event. The last date for this to just send your entries is 10th of November. So for more details, you can contact them through the mail, or you can visit their website. This time, Aspect Ivrajas College chapter has come up with a student poster presentation competition. Through this event, the club wants to involve young minds and stimulate the need to act on AMR. So we welcome posters from undergraduate and postgraduate students. So, and along with this, so we expect posters to be themed on these five topics, each one of which we think is potent in handling this issue. The themes I would like to read out: current scenario on AMR in India, AMR, a potential public health issue, AMR as a cause for next pandemic, One Health concept as a key to fix AMR, hospital-acquired infections, and access to growing cases of AMR in India. So the last date for uploading your details to this link is, to the link provided here is 20th October 2020. So I request all the participants who are interested to just ping in your email so that we can send this particular flyer along with the feedback form. So the shortlisted candidates will be informed later through suitable means, and they are expected to present their posters online before a judging panel. Other details can be found in the flyer and can be accessed by interested candidates once the flyer is shared to your emails, or can be even referred through our social media platforms. So we are actually expecting a large number of participants for this event. And if you need more clarifications, you can contact either me or Sachin. So the details are presented here, and we'll also be sharing it later. So we also request all the faculty and student community to spread this information so that more interested and like-minded people come together and help us in coordinating this event in a better way. Along with this, we also welcome like inputs and insights from students and of course the faculty who are interested to tag with us and help in contributing to this particular uniform cause. So we last not